Okay, so I know everybody out there keeps wanting Peru stories, and my problem is I start wondering, like, did I tell that story already? Did I actually tell that story already? So if I repeat myself, I apologize. I thought I would do just sort of a wandering musing of Peru. Once again, one of the things that I love about Peru so much is the sacred geometry, and what I love are the people. And the people, I mean, the moment you get off an airplane, there's this beautiful, joyous pan flute music, and then you come out of well, first of all, just getting into the airport in Peru, like Cusco. Cusco is the highest altitude place that you can land a plane, and you can only go there first thing in the morning because the air is cool, and the moment the air heats up, planes actually can't take off because it's like a bowl, it's like a basin. So what happens is you take off from Lima first thing in the morning, and you go up over these gigantic mountains, and then literally you just go straight down. You just go straight down into this bowl, and you're just like, whoa, like holy moly. And you're kind of, you have to curve to get to this narrow little airport that, because there's buildings chocker block everywhere, like the whole city is just full of mud brick houses, and so you land, and then there's this beautiful music, and you come out, and you are just attacked by the sellers. And the sellers, again, they are smarter than all of us, and they are more determined than all of us, and they are relentless. They're just completely relentless. And one of the reasons that when I go to Peru with all these things for the children. So I bring crayons and pens and pencils and Bic lighters and really cheap watches from Walmart that are like $7. And, and I hand things out, and I try and have a backpack full of things per day. So I basically bring 2 suitcases with a minimal clothes, and then I would just hand out, one backpack full of stuff a day. And I would bring deflated soccer balls, and I'd bring baseballs, and I'd bring rubber balls and plastic dinosaurs and marbles, and so it was amazing how great this would be, because you get to these train stations, and here's this child that is 3 years old, literally 3 years old, that is selling mittens, and you can't not buy mittens from a 3-year-old. And that's the point. They have your number so completely. But so what I would also do is I would pull out one of my plastic dinosaurs, and I'd pull out a marble, and I'd give him maybe 2 plastic dinosaurs or plastic animals and a marble, and we would play, hit the animal, with the marble. And it's amazing how coordinated these kids are, because they don't have computers. They don't have distractions like phones. And so their hand-eye coordination at 3 years old is like way better than anything I've ever seen. And one time I was playing, hit the dinosaur with the marble, and there was a tuft of grass and dirt and the cement, and so we were playing on the cement, and the marble flipped and it went into the tuft of grass, and we, the kid and I searched and searched and searched, and then this old woman with this red hat and a red dress came over, and she was searching for the marble. And then I looked at her and I said, Pachamama, which meant Mother Earth took the marble. And she was like, yeah, Pachamama, like this. And so I pulled out another marble, and we kept playing. And what's weird about Peru is how much there is a very sense of a live spirit, because the Quechua people knew that the white man was coming, and they knew that it was bad. And so they went up to 17,000 feet and said, find us if you can, right? So they have accommodated, their bodies have accommodated being at high altitude. And so they have these gigantic hearts. And, over there, they chew the coca leaves, and, people go, oh, coca leaves, cocaine, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what this is. To make cocaine, you have to have wet, fresh coca leaves, and then you have to soak them in a chemical, and then you have to extract all this stuff. And, cocaine addiction is actually a multifaceted addiction, because you're not just addicted to the coca leaf, but there's all these chemicals that are in there that make cocaine. But The people of Peru, they just chew dry coca, and they're dry coca leaves, and they do fortune telling with them. So they lay out their mesa, which is their tablecloth, their sacred tablecloth, and they ask you to hold the leaves, and then you just throw the leaves, and then how the leaves position themselves and how they stand up, they'll actually give you a reading, which is sort of shockingly accurate. And that's again a really interesting thing. But they're always chewing the coca leaves because the coca leaves increase your heart rate, and they allow you to hike at these high altitudes. And so people, Americans especially, come and they are not wanting to chew the coca leaves, and they have like the medicine that is for high altitude sickness, which prevents the fluid building up in the lungs, because you get this less air pressure, and so then the fluid comes up into the lungs and you have this shortness of breath. But what works is the coca leaves. And so when I had brought my sister there, she was like, no, I'm not going to chew the coca leaves, and she was getting this raging migraine headache. And and she had the pills, but the pills weren't working for this. And I said, just drink some coca tea. Just drink some coca tea. And she drank the coca tea instantly within 5 minutes, her migraine was gone. Instantly, her breathing was better. And she's a doctor. And so she was like, oh my gosh, like that's insane. I'm like, yeah, we really should be allowing people who have migraines to drink coca tea. But again, because of our government, we're not allowed to bring this stuff in. Actually, you can bring one bag of coca tea into the country if you come from Peru. But, there's all these rules and regulations, and there are things that have been being used by the natives for a long time that really do help and really do work. And it's sad we're not sort of allowed to have free reign to try some of them, at least. So anyway, but, Peru, it's just incredible. Like, you go to places and you look out of the bus, and here's this mountain that looks like a frog. Literally like, a frog. And it's just everywhere. You just can't not go someplace and not see all of the gigantic art that the divine has placed all over the place. And it's hard when you're at high altitude and you've got a whole bunch of tourists from America that I would take on these trips. And it was always interesting to me that the person you would think that would get altitude sickness didn't, and the person that you were pretty sure would get altitude sickness that didn't, and the person who you were sure was going to get altitude sickness didn't, and it just is this funny thing. And then the person that you thought would never get altitude sickness was suddenly so sick that I'm having to run to the hospital and get these tubes that we pump oxygen in to kind of regulate them, because they were really miserable. They're throwing up, they can't stand up. It's really horrible. So no matter what, Peru is an adventure. And, I know Peru has changed quite a bit at this point, because I was going in the 1990s. But there was no internet, and there was no, the phones do not work. And, now that's probably changed. But it was so amazing to me to see how technology addicted Americans were. Like, they would have a hissy fit if they couldn't get on the internet to get their email. It was shocking. I'm like, really? Come on. It's like you're on vacation. You're in Peru for 3 weeks. This will be fine, right? But no, any place they could find internet, they needed to have their internet. So, and whenever we were there, we would try and connect with local shaman one way or the other. And like I said, because I have a backpack full of gifts, that I would end up with children just following me everywhere, even when I no longer had anything, or even if they didn't know I had anything. I had this weird thing that children would just follow me everywhere. I was like the Pied Piper, and even the shaman would look at me and go, "What is with you?" And I'd be like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I've been Peruvian because I just love the Peruvian people. It's like I just want to pick them up and carry them home. It's just like there's something in my heart that is just so expansive for them." And so I remember this one day I was walking up this long hill in a small town, and something said keep walking up the hill. And by the time I got to the top of the hill, at the very top of the hill was a shaman that had laid out his wares to sell, and he was selling what he considered sacred objects, which is like little stones and, little seeds and stuff like this. So something very shamanic, and I knew what they were. And he came up, so the kids, he comes in, he's watching me, with these children following me. And he didn't speak a word of Spanish, and I didn't speak a word of Quechua. And he starts talking to the children, and the children are suddenly like looking at me like this, and I don't know what he's saying about me, but all of a sudden they get very quiet, and they get very reverent, and they get very still, and they just want to touch me, which is really interesting. They just kind of want to touch me energetically. And and I don't know what's going on, because all of a sudden all these children are touching me, and I'm trying to make sure they're not trying to steal something from me, which they weren't. But it was this interesting kind of feeling that, he basically was saying there was something about me that they should touch, that I should touch in some way. So they were. And so there's always this incredible magic that happens whenever you're going anywhere in Peru. And I think I told the story about how my sister and I went down to the Temple of the Moon and almost died from dehydration. And there are a few times in my life that I go, that was going to kill me. I mean, it's like if I had been even 15 minutes longer without water, I probably would have succumbed. I mean, I was, there's very few times that I go, okay, I think I'm going to die. And this was one of those moments. And so when we finished, I was supposed to run a group with them, and I just turned them over to the shaman, and I said, I have got to go down the hill. And so we take this, hair-raising bus trip down from Machu Picchu back down to Aguas Calientes, which is the town below. And, as we were walking on the tracks, because you have to walk on the tracks to get back to the hotel, normally the sellers are really pushy, and suddenly the sellers were like this. And these people are really sensitive. They notice energy. And then all of a sudden I realized that my sister and I were moaning. Like we were so exhausted that every step we took, we were going, I mean, it was really bad. I mean, we were so out of it, and we were so deeply exhausted that, literally just putting one step in front of the other. And I remember thinking, you just have to get like another half mile to the hotel. You just have to go a little bit further. And that was after we had tried to rehydrate. And so anyway, there was one woman who decided to be pushy, and she decided to try and sell me something. And I was so exhausted. I said to her, I'm so sorry. I said, I promise to buy a t-shirt from you tomorrow, but I'm so exhausted. I can't do it at the moment. And she was very miffed and upset, but she let me go by. And I know that she was probably sitting there waiting, for days, but I was literally in bed for 3 days. I mean, my sister said I should have been in the hospital. I mean, I had total renal failure. I was extremely exhausted. And so by the time I came out, she wasn't there. And I was feeling better. But I saw her daughter, and so I gave her daughter all this stuff. I gave her, beautiful little barrettes for her hair, and I gave her pens and pencils, and I left a watch for the mother, and, I did all these things because I had said I was going to buy a t-shirt. And what I gave was worth more than the t-shirt, but I didn't see the mother, so I decided to do it this way. So the next day, I see her, but now I've got a group, and so the group goes past, and, and I said to her, I said, okay, I'm going to come back, in 15 minutes, and I'm going to buy a t-shirt. And she got mad. And she threw magic at me. She literally threw a hex at me. And I felt this hex, this curse, go through my body, but it didn't stick to me, because what she was angry about, I hadn't done. I was not intentionally not going to buy a t-shirt from her. I had literally almost died on the Inca Trail. Then I'd given all this stuff to her daughter, so I'd actually been really generous. And then I was dealing with a group that was in distress at that particular moment. And so I wasn't lying. I just got delayed, right? And I turned around, and and she realized that the hex had not hit me, that it had gone through me, and she was frightened. Like, then she was frightened, and she was like, like, oh God, like, who are you? That hex should have hit you. And I just looked at her and I said, don't you know that I'm the one that gave your daughter all that stuff? And don't you know that, I am going to keep my word, and I am going to buy t-shirts from you, and there's no need for you to try and throw a hex at me. And she literally started shaking. I mean, like, she didn't know who the hell I was. And in honesty, I didn't know why the hex, didn't hit me, except the fact that I was not guilty of what she had accused me of. And so, I learned a lot in that moment, because people throw energy at you, and I notice it. I'm a psychic. I notice it, but it goes through me because it's not even attached to me. It's usually attached to somebody that they know, and a wounding that they have from their past that doesn't have anything to do with me. And so anyway, but then later on, I did come back 15 minutes later, and I bought t-shirts from her. So, Peru is an interesting place because the churches there, they are built on the foundations of the ancient Inca temples. And so the people there practice Catholicism with a slant into the shamanism. And so there's this weird line between the white magic and the black magic, which is still very alive in Peru. I mean, you can go to these different markets and you can buy things for black magic in Peru. So it's funny how the line is very, it's not there. There's not really a line. They're kind of overlapping like this. And if you don't know this, but Catholic churches in the old days were made in the shape of a cross. And so, what happens is at the top of the cross behind, you'll see all these shamanic offerings, because that wall is actually the wall of a temple. That was a Inca temple. So you've got the Catholic Church service happening in the front, and then you've got the shamanic offerings at the back of the Catholic Church. And probably in no other Catholic churches in the world will you see that, except in South America, that they allow that overlap of the energy field. So there you go. There's a little story about, Peru. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.